Spotlight, we are joined by Holly Porter, a powerhouse entrepreneur, spiritual strategist, and the heart behind Retreat RNR. Holly's story isn't just about survival, it's about transcendence. After a near death experience and 70 days in the hospital, she didn't just recover, she reinvented. We are unpacking what it means to live with purpose when you've seen the edge of life and chose to rise. Welcome to the show, Holly. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Appreciate you.
Mhm. So, Holly, take us to that moment. What was going through your mind during your near death experience? And what did it awaken in you?
Wow. Yeah, that's a loaded question. A lot was going through my mind because I was put in a coma in the hospital. And so it was self-induced most of the time, which was good. Um, I had COVID, just so little backstory. And I was laying there really just thinking, is this it? Is this the end? And then you start thinking, have I done enough in the world? What kind of a legacy am I leaving? Am I enough? Was I enough? All those thoughts, of course, go through my mind thinking, gosh, did I live the life I really wanted to live?
Mm-hmm. Right. And how did that experience shift your understanding of purpose and time?
Wow, I never was afraid of dying. Um, I think growing up, I when I did visualization exercises, I never could visualize the 5-year vision in my future. And so in my mind, I always thought, gosh, maybe I'm not going to live to be very old. And that never scared me. I just, I wasn't like okay with it necessarily, but I just felt like whatever happens is going to happen. And I'm just going to live my life to be a good person. And when it's over. So when I'm faced with death all of a sudden, it was just okay, well, was this it? Was I right? And obviously I was not right, at least up till now.
And it's incredible how death or the threat of it can teach us how to truly live.
Yeah, it really is. When when you're faced with death, for me, it changed everything. I mean, I had out of body experiences within this 3.5 week period of time. I was in the hospital for 70 days, but the first 3.5 weeks were super touch and go. And I didn't even know that out of body or spiritual transformation experiences existed. I knew about near death, but I had all three. And I feel very blessed to have had those. And it definitely has shifted my spirituality and the way I look at things and the way I live my life and the way I do business. I wasn't a bad person before, but I want to believe that I'm a better person now.
Definitely. And you often talk about spiritual resilience. How did you begin to rebuild, not just physically, but spiritually after your hospitalization?
Well, I spent a lot of time in my head when I was in a coma. A lot of people ask, do you remember things going on around you? Do you remember hearing things? And I can remember a couple incidences happening that I wouldn't have known otherwise. I don't remember being in that conversation, but I remember situations. And I believe definitely people can hear when they're in a coma. They say when people are close to death, the last thing to go is their hearing. I believe that to be true. And I think it was a good guidance to stop and listen. I had many people that know me well know that I live in this busy, crazy world and shiny object syndrome, like so many. And I have always had 3 or 4 companies at a time. I don't focus on one thing, even though I would probably a lot more successful in my life if I did. To me, that didn't make me happy. It made me happy to be in a busy stage to a point. And many people shared that my higher power is God, whatever that is for anyone else, I respect. But I feel like God put me in a coma to get me to sit still, to get me to listen, because I wasn't listening. And that's a long time to have to lay there and think. And I mean, I was miserable because I was so sick. So, of course, it wasn't like I was just laying there twiddling my thumbs, feeling like I'm bored. I mean, I was fighting for my life every breath, literally. And it just the perspective on everything shifted.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And were there tools or rituals that helped you re anchor your inner light?
Hmm. Well, definitely prayer. I feel like that is huge. And I believe prayer got me back. I feel like when I crossed in my near death to the other side, I didn't get a choice. Like a lot of people have said they got to choose to come back or stay. Obviously, the ones that stayed we don't talk to anymore. And I didn't get a choice. I was just put back. And so I feel like that was okay because I feel like that was God's will. And honestly, where I was, I wouldn't have had a problem staying. I possibly would have just chose to stay in that place, um, knowing later at some point I would see my loved ones again. I believe that, and it just the light that I was in was so. I want to say it was like add every great day you have here, every day of your life, and times that by maybe even 1,000. That's like 1 second of where I was. I don't even know how to put it in any other perspective, but you're just that light is where we all gravitate. Everything gravitates to light. Everything wants to go to its higher power. And I shouldn't say everything or everybody. I'm not wanting to speak for everybody, but for the most part, we gravitate to the light, hopefully, more than the dark.
Mm-hmm. And we don't just need strength to survive, we need meaning to heal.
Yeah, that's a good point. We definitely and meaning to me is also hope.
Mm-hmm. And your retreats now weave business and soul. How do you guide others to merge spirituality with strategy?
Well, I don't know if I have a strategy necessarily, other than just sharing my experience and hoping it's relatable in some aspect. I don't feel like there aren't many people in the big perspective people that have a near death experience or these other experiences that I had. I feel very blessed to have had those. And I think it's just sitting, uh, the way you could create that for yourself is meditation and even hypnosis. I had a hypnosis session about 2 years after this experience, and I was out of the hospital because I was writing a book and I wanted my near death to have it had some gaps in it, and I didn't feel like it was complete. And for me, so I asked a friend of mine to do a hypnosis session, and honestly, that was almost as good as my near death experience because it closed the gap to some things that in the story for me, it opened some doors. He told me more will be revealed to you when the time is right, which I know was not the hypnotist words. Those were words I was being told. And I was shared, a message that we need to love people where they're at. And that changed a lot because the 2 years prior to that, after coming out of the hospital, out of the coma, and healing, and then getting long COVID after that were the worst 2 years of my whole entire life times 100. And everything that had ever happened bad in my life prior to that didn't even compare. And I thought, how do you come from such light and this wonderful, warm place and come back and live, so to speak, in this hell I was living in? I know now it's been a year and a half since I've gotten beyond that point. And I know now those were some new lessons, those were some new experiences that I needed to have so that I could do my future work, my future philanthropy that I am choosing to do. And I think just that we need to figure out what works for us to get into that space. And when I do know that when I'm slipping or I'm not living on purpose or in purpose, I get a relapse with my long COVID, and I get the fatigue back and I get the pain back, and it's debilitating. And I usually work through it, but I realize now that that's another way that my messages come. Oh, you're out of line. You're not living in purpose. You're not doing, you're too busy. I'm going to slow you down. And for me, just that realization to know that that is happening, and next time I start going downhill with my health, to choose differently and stop and listen and realize, okay, why is my body shutting down right now? And I think for others, that's what we need to just do, figure out what it is that our mind and our body and our soul need to figure out how we work and what works for us, because not everybody's the same.
100%. And what's one misconception people have about integrating the two?
Um, I think I want to say believing it works. And I think that's a limiting belief of others, is to not realize if they go within and really go with that gut feeling and that intuition. And I'm sure if they're listening to your podcast, they're getting a lot of tips on here. And I think it's just that inner knowing. We all have our own gifts. Um, just really stopping and listening and figuring out, again, what works for you. Because what I could say works for me may not work for anyone else. And maybe some, maybe not. But I think it's just really sitting still with things. Everybody has intuition. And I think so many of us maybe don't believe. They think, oh, I don't have those gifts that those other people do. Well, you might not have their gifts, but you have your gifts. And I think if you just dig deep, you can figure out what that looks like and help you progress and help you get a strategy that's going to get you where you want to go.
And we often compartmentalize success and soul, but your work proves that can elevate one another.
Yes, definitely. I think I really feel like just, being a team player, just really coming to any relationship in service and from a giving heart, a servant heart, where it's not what am I going to get out of this? It's what am I going to give to this? And when you give, it changes everything. And I've noticed that when I'm down or when I'm having a pity party, we all have them. I feel like if I could just ask myself, what can I do for somebody else today? And sure enough, as soon as I figure out that or do that, it changes my whole emotional state. It changes my feelings towards things. And I think another tip I want to just add to that is how important a morning routine is. Um, a couple years ago, I just marked off like 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every day on my calendar. I wouldn't do appointments. I wouldn't do things. Now, I'm not saying I never do, because I do. There are times when there are things that come up I need to do earlier. But if I can just take that time, a lot of that isn't even, a lot of it isn't just self care for me, it's health care. Because with the long COVID, to stay healthy, it's not just about, okay, some days I have to choose. Am I going to exercise today, or am I going to get in my hyperbaric? A hyperbaric is an oxygen chamber. I have a home version, and I do that every other day for 90 minutes. It's a long time to, but I feel like my self-care is my health care for me. And I think it's everyone has different ways that they can tap into these things. And I think the biggest challenge is figuring out what that looks like. And then also following through and doing it. And sometimes we know what to do. So I guess the question to ask would be, then why aren't we doing it?
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And what did surrender look like for you? Not just in the hospital, but in entrepreneurship and leadership.
Well, for me, leadership, I've always felt like I've been a leader. When somebody says, "Oh, you're a born leader," that really is a true statement. When people, that's something that people see in someone else. And I think it's just going going forward with a true knowing of what things look like, but also being adaptable and flexible in decision making, in choices, in the way we live. I mean, honestly, I like change. I know there's so many people that hate change, and I can change on a dime. If there's something that I know needs to be shifted or looked at differently, or a different perspective comes into a conversation, I love that, because to me, better's better. That's like my mantra, not just with my health, but with my life. Better's better. And every day that I can have something that's better in my life or different, that is going in the light and the best direction for where it needs to be, then let's do that. Like, I feel like so many people, they hesitate, which they miss opportunities by hesitation. And I'm not saying just dive in and jump into everything that comes up or change everything you're doing. I'm really not saying that. I think it's using that gut feeling, using your your knowing of yourself and how that works, and being a team player, listening to other people and their choices and their decisions, and maybe, is there a better way? I think that that really is the bottom line. Is there a better way, would be the question to ask every day in anything you do. Almost, is there a better way? Is there a more efficient way? Is there a more financial way? Is there a better way on my body, on my mind? I think that would be some questions I would ask.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And was it difficult to let go of control in order to receive guidance?
Oh, well, my simple answer would be absolutely yes. Um, and because I'm adaptable, I'm coachable, I'm open to change. I think it makes it easier when you have that thought process. Um, but yeah, sometimes you want it. I don't, you hear that, oh, they want it their way. It's their way or the highway. I don't look at it that way. I feel like there's, what I call them are negotiables and non negotiables. And what are you willing to negotiate in your life, in your purpose, in your relationships? And what are you not willing to negotiate? And I'm a list person. And if it helps to have you go write a pro and a con list of all the reasons why something should change or be different and all the reasons why it should stay the same. And then look at it from a broader perspective. I am a true believer in masterminds and friendships that are truthful and that people will give you good feedback. My motto again is all feedback's good feedback. So meaning if somebody is going to tell me something negative or change the way I was headed or the way I was thinking of something, I want to hear their opinion. I also want to hear why, because there's got to be a reason behind it. And if it, I'm always open to listening to that. But if there's something that even I might not want to hear it, but I think if we just open our minds into listening, then really feel with what is being said and decide how that feels for you and how that could change things. Again, go back to the pro and con list. Maybe that adds a few things on both sides. And then you have a broader perspective to look at things. Masterminds, I want to just say, when I had a lot of coaches in my life and I outgrew every one of them, which is a good problem to have. And sometimes they're just, I always want to be in a room with people that are smarter than me. I love being the dumbest person in the room because I always want to learn and grow. And there was times in my life that I was so fed up with the coaching world that I just started my own little mastermind. So I would gather 5 of us together and we would just power play and bounce off our ideas and really, and I wanted them to be at my level in business or above. Not that they're better, just I mean financially and success wise, because I wanted to learn. And so I've told a lot of people that when you can't find what you're looking for, go create it, make it.
And that edge between ambition and surrender is where transformation really begins.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
Mhm. So, Holly Potter reminds us that purpose doesn't begin when we have it all together. It begins the moment we decide to rise from the ashes of our pain with clarity, courage, and soul. If you have been knocked down, let this episode be your call to rise differently, with light, with heart, and with a story only you can tell.